The air inside the Vegas lounge buzzed with cheap perfume, flashing neon and laughter that had long since lost sincerity. Charlotte Whitmore leaned over the rim of her cocktail glass, her lipstick smudged, eyes sparkling with mischief and vodka. Harper, 2 seats down and already halfway to blackout, waved her phone like a wand. "Come on, Charlie," she slurred. "You said you could marry anyone. Prove it." The other girls cackled. Charlotte grinned, twirling a strand of blonde hair around her finger. Her mother's voice echoed faintly in her mind. "Don't embarrass the family." She silenced it with another sip. Malik Johnson wiped down the end of the bar, quiet in the storm of glittering nonsense. His sleeves were rolled just above the wrist, revealing forearms dusted with years of work. Charlotte's gaze drifted toward him, not because he smiled or flirted. He didn't. That made it more interesting. "Him," she said suddenly, pointing with her glass. "I'll marry him," Harper shrieked. "The bartender, you won't." Charlotte was already on her feet. He looked up, calm. "Can I help?" "You?" She leaned across the bar, bold and careless. "Yeah, marry me." He blinked, then smirked, slow and unimpressed. "Is that a serious proposal or just rich girl rebellion?" The girls behind her howled. Charlotte bit her lip. "What if it's both?" Malik wiped his hands, met her eyes without flinching. "I don't marry drunk strangers, even in Vegas. But if you're brave enough to remember it in the morning." He slid her a napkin. "There's a chapel 2 blocks down. I get off at midnight." Charlotte stared at the napkin. Harper shrieked in disbelief. "He called your bluff." Charlotte pocketed it. "He doesn't think I will." Her heels clicked on the tile as she walked off, heartbeat louder than the music. That night, under fluorescent lights and beside a plastic Elvis, she showed up. And so did he. "Hello, my Stop Racism family. Thank you for tuning in today. Before we dive deeper into the story, I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your country and state in the comments below. Also, I'd love to know your thoughts. What did you think of the story so far? Let us know in the comments. We love reading them, and trust me, your words motivate us to keep making these videos. Let's make this video reach at least 50 comments. Your support means the world to us, and it drives us to create even more meaningful content for you. So don't forget to comment, share, and keep the positivity flowing. Sunlight cut through the blinds like an accusation. Charlotte squinted, rolled onto her back, and felt her throat tighten against last night's alcohol. Her head throbbed. The room didn't look familiar. Sterile hotel furniture, a tacky velvet headboard, and a plastic bouquet on the dresser. Her heels were on the floor. Her phone was dead. And beside her on the nightstand sat a folded piece of paper. She sat up, slowly, hair tangled, mascara smudged under both eyes. With a groggy sigh, she reached for the paper. Her fingers trembled as she unfolded it. It was official. Courthouse seal, 2 names printed clean and bold. Charlotte May Whitmore and Malik Andre Johnson. A date, a signature, a witness. It was real. "Holy hell," she whispered, lips parting in disbelief. She tried to laugh. A weak, humorless chuckle escaped. No way. No freaking way. Her heart slammed against her ribs as she scanned the text again. It wasn't a joke, not a prank, not one of Harper's ridiculous setups. They actually did it. Her phone buzzed to life after charging. Notifications poured in. Harper's messages were at the top. "You legend. You actually did it." "What now, Mrs. Johnson?" Charlotte groaned, pressing her forehead into her palm. Her hands still smelled faintly of bar soap. She had no idea how she got back to the hotel. No memory of walking in, of saying good night. Only flashes. His calm voice, the feel of his jacket draped over her shoulders, the weight of the pen in her hand. She paced barefoot across the carpet, marriage license in hand. This was absurd. He was a bartender. She was a Whitmore. Her mother would implode if she found out. She reached for her phone again, ready to call her lawyer, but froze. No voicemails from Malik, no texts. Just one missed call around 3:12 a.m. She stared at the screen, then back at the paper. It was supposed to be a story to laugh about, but suddenly she wasn't laughing. Not because it was illegal or risky, but because something about it felt more honest than anything she'd ever done. And that scared her. She didn't tear the license. She folded it slowly and tucked it into her purse. The Whitmore penthouse overlooked Central Park, wrapped in marble and silence. But the moment Charlotte stepped inside, the air cracked like glass. Eleanor stood at the breakfast table, eyes sharp as razors over her tablet. "What is this?" Her voice was calm, lethal. On the screen, a photo of Charlotte in a wrinkled white dress beside a grinning Elvis and a man her mother didn't recognize. Charlotte's stomach flipped. "It was a joke," she muttered, tossing her purse down. "Vegas. A mistake." Eleanor stood. "This mistake has a legally binding license attached to it. Do you even know his name?" Charlotte didn't answer. She didn't need to. Eleanor already had it printed. "Malik Andre Johnson, a bartender." The last word landed like spit. "We'll annul it quietly." Charlotte looked away. "I'll handle it." Hours later, seated alone in her room, she stared at the phone in her hand. She hadn't thought about calling him until now. Her finger hovered over his number. Finally, she tapped. 1 ring, 2. Then he answered. "Hey." His voice was the same, low, unbothered. "Charlotte Whitmore," he said, as if tasting the name. "You sober now?" "I need to talk," she said carefully. "About Vegas. The paperwork." "You want out," he said, not unkind. "I figured." There was a pause. "I won't sign anything over the phone. You want closure? Come say it to my face." Charlotte blinked. "Why?" "Because I was there too. I might not have worn a ring with a diamond the size of a glacier, but I stood beside you, I kissed you, I signed. That deserves a real goodbye, don't you think?" The line went quiet. Charlotte didn't know what to say. She was used to men, begging, pleading, folding. But Malik stood still. "I don't want your money or your attention," he added, "but I'm not something you check off like a receipt. So when you're ready to mean it, come find me." Then the line clicked. She stared at her reflection in the dark screen, lips parted, breath caught. He wasn't angry. He wasn't dramatic. He was just real, more real than anyone she'd ever known. And somehow that unnerved her more than any threat ever could. The Vegas air was drier than she remembered, the sun less forgiving. Charlotte stepped out of the cab wearing a blazer too expensive for this side of town. The building Malik lived in was older, with peeling paint and flower pots that clung to the edges of balconies like stubborn hope. She paused at the steps, heart pounding harder than she liked. This wasn't just a formality anymore. Something about him lingered. When she knocked, Malik opened the door with a kitchen towel over his shoulder. He wasn't surprised to see her, just nodded and stepped aside. "Took you long enough," he said, motioning her in. She entered slowly. The apartment was small but clean. A worn couch, books stacked in corners. The faint scent of roasted garlic clung to the air. "I didn't expect—" She trailed off. "What?" he asked, lifting a pan off the stove. "For me to have a stove?" "No," she said quickly. "I just didn't think you'd let me in." He glanced at her, then plated the food with calm precision. "You're here?" I figured that meant something. She sat at the counter watching him. "You cook?" He smiled slightly. "Learned early. My mom worked nights. Someone had to feed my little brother." Charlotte exhaled, hands clasped tightly in her lap. "I thought you'd be angry." "I'm not." He slid a plate toward her. "You don't scare me, Charlotte." She looked down. "Everyone else wants something. You don't. That's confusing." "I want things," he said. "Just not what you're used to." They ate in silence for a few minutes. Then he leaned on the counter, arms folded. "Why'd you come?" "I thought if I saw you again, it would feel fake. That maybe I imagined it all, but—" She hesitated. "You're the only thing about that night I remember clearly." He nodded once. "Then maybe it wasn't all a joke." The sun dipped behind the windows, casting soft gold across his face, and for the first time she stopped seeing him as a mistake and started seeing him as a mirror, not of who she was, but of who she was terrified to be. Honest, rooted, real. And suddenly that scared her even more. How's this story hitting you so far? Tell us in the comments. If you're loving it, type 1. If not, type 0. We want to know what you think. Back in New York, the penthouse felt colder than she remembered. The flowers on the marble kitchen island were fresh, placed by staff before her arrival, but they meant nothing. Charlotte stood by the window, phone in her hand, staring at the skyline as if it might explain why her thoughts kept circling back to a man in a small apartment thousands of miles away. Her mother hadn't asked how Vegas went, just assumed it was handled. It wasn't. She called Malik that night. He picked up on the second ring. "You home?" he asked. "Yeah," she said softly, curling her knees to her chest on her bed. "Didn't expect to hear from you." "I didn't expect to want to call." He chuckled gently. "Same." They talked for 15 minutes. About nothing. About everything. The next night she called again. Then the night after that, and again on the fourth call she asked, "Why do you keep answering?" "Because I like how you sound when you're not pretending," he said. "It's rare." That shut her up. For a second, she looked around her room. Framed photos of charity events, designer clothes arranged like armor, a full life built on empty things. "I don't know who I am without all this." "You do," he said. "You just don't trust her yet," she laughed under her breath. "You always talk like that?" "Only when it matters." Their calls became routine. Midnight whispers, daily check-ins. He'd send pictures of books he thought she should read. She'd send him sarcastic selfies from charity luncheons. Somewhere between the silence and the banter, something started to form. Something warm, unexpected. She never told her mother. She didn't know how, and she didn't care to explain. Because for once, someone saw her. Not the headlines or the last name or the show, just her, and that felt like the beginning of something she'd been missing her whole life, even if she still didn't have the words for it. Charlotte met him at the airport, wearing a coat that didn't match the weather, nervous hands stuffed in her pockets. Malik stepped off the escalator with that same unbothered, calm duffel bag slung over his shoulder. "You really came," she said, voice caught between relief and uncertainty. "You really asked," he replied. She smiled then, brief, real, and they hugged like it wasn't the first time. At dinner, the Whitmore estate shimmered under glass chandeliers and practiced smiles. Charlotte wore a deep green dress her mother approved of. Malik, in a navy, button-down and clean slacks, stood out before he even entered the room. Eleanor Whitmore greeted him with a tight nod and a glance that cut through skin. "So this is the bartender," she said, sipping wine. "You clean up well." Malik didn't flinch. "I get that a lot, mostly from people who expect less." Charlotte shot her mother a look. "Can we just have dinner?" The evening dragged. Conversations curled around stock markets and private school admissions. Malik listened more than he spoke, until someone, one of Charlotte's cousins, leaned in and asked, "So what do you do again?" "I run a small hospitality business, bar management, staff training, community mentoring on the side." A pause. "So you're still behind the counter?" "No," he said. "I'm behind people who stand behind the counter. There's a difference." Later in the hallway, Malik pulled on his coat as Charlotte caught up to him. "You're leaving?" He nodded once. "I don't belong here, and that's okay, but you need to ask yourself if you do." Charlotte reached for his arm. "I'm sorry. She's not the only one," he said gently. "You didn't stop her. You didn't say a word." Her throat tightened. "I didn't know how. That's the problem." He walked out, quiet and proud, leaving behind a room full of everything Charlotte had grown up thinking mattered, and for the first time, she hated it. Not him, them, herself, the silence, all of it. Charlotte sat on the edge of her mother's pristine ivory couch, the family estate echoing with quiet elegance and judgment. Eleanor paced by the window, wineglass in hand, voice as clipped as ever. "You embarrassed yourself, Charlotte. That boy, he humiliated you. You're lucky no one from the board saw." Charlotte stared at her hands, fingers trembling against her knee. "He didn't humiliate me." "You did." Eleanor turned. "Excuse me?" Charlotte stood slowly. "You talk about legacy, image, bloodlines, like people are trophies. Malik didn't say a word out of place, and I said nothing. That's on me." Eleanor's face hardened. "You're not thinking clearly." "No, I am, for the first time." Charlotte stepped closer. "I quit the foundation. I'm moving out. I'm done letting you dictate my worth." Eleanor scoffed. "Where will you go? Back to Vegas? Play house in a rented apartment with a man you barely know?" Charlotte's voice cracked but stayed firm. "I don't know what it will be, but at least it'll be mine." She walked out without packing. No suitcase, no plan. Just a wallet, a coat, and a heart finally shaking loose from its cage. By nightfall, she stood outside Malik's bar. The street was quiet, neon signs flickering low. She knocked on the side door, unsure if he'd answer. He did. He looked tired. She looked scared. "I don't have a plan," she said softly. "Just the truth. I was silent because I was raised that way, but I'm not staying silent anymore. He leaned against the frame, arms crossed. Why now? Because losing you felt worse than losing everything else. Malik didn't smile, not yet, but he stepped aside, and she stepped in, this time, not as a dare, not as a Whitmore, but as herself. Whoever that was, she was ready to find out. Malik laid a pillow and a folded blanket on the worn couch as Charlotte stood awkwardly near the kitchen doorway. 1 week, he said, not turning around. No drama, no press, no pretending. Charlotte nodded. I'm not here for show. He glanced over his shoulder. Then you can start by wiping tables. This isn't a hotel. The next morning, she pulled her hair into a ponytail and walked into the bar's back room wearing one of Malik's oversized flannel shirts. It smelled like pine and something steady. She scrubbed tables, sorted bottles, restocked shelves, quietly observing everything. Regulars came and went, most of them recognizing her but saying nothing. She caught snippets of conversations about overdue rent, about birthdays with no gifts, about kids trying to finish school. It was a world she'd never stepped into before, but it didn't feel beneath her. It felt honest. Later, she joined Malik behind the counter. He handed her a rag and nodded toward a stubborn spill. You missed a spot, she smirked. Bossy. Clean is clean, he said. Doesn't matter who does it. They shared lunch at the back alley table under string lights he'd put up himself. She picked at her sandwich. You built this place. Piece by piece, he said. After my mom passed, I needed something that felt like mine. Charlotte looked around. You made it feel like home. He didn't answer, just watched. Her with a quiet intensity that made her feel more seen than she ever had under a spotlight. That night, as she settled onto the couch, Malik passed her a fresh towel. You're not bad at this, she laughed softly. At what? Showing up. Her smile faded into something tender. That's all I want to do now. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel like she had to perform. She just had to be. And that, somehow, was harder and better, all at once. On the third night, while folding laundry beside the couch, Charlotte opened a drawer looking for a fresh pillowcase. Instead, she found them, creased and slightly yellowed. The annulment papers, her name, his name, the marriage date stamped clean in the corner. For a long moment, she just stared. When Malik walked in from his office, she was sitting at the table, papers in front of her. He paused. She didn't hide them. I found these, she said. I know, he replied, walking past her toward the fridge. I brought them the first time I came back, she admitted, eyes down. I thought if I gave you the choice, it would make everything easier. He pulled out a bottle of water and closed the door gently. And now, I still want you to have the choice, she said, even if I want something different. Malik took a seat across from her. You think this changes what I already know? Charlotte looked at him, hands folded in her lap. Which is? That you're not the same woman who walked into my bar with a dare on her lips and champagne on her breath. She didn't speak. He reached forward, slid the papers closer, and picked them up. Then, calmly, he tore them in half, and then in half again. I wasn't waiting on those, he said. I was waiting on you, Charlotte swallowed. And now I know you're here for the right reason. Tears welled, but she blinked them back. I'm not sure I deserve another chance. He leaned forward. Good, that's how. I know it's real. The pieces of the paper lay scattered on the table between them. No ceremony, no grand gestures. Just a quiet decision that something fake had become something true. And that truth, fragile and unspoken, held more weight than any legal contract ever could. How's this story hitting you so far? Tell us in the comments. If you're loving it, type 1, if not type 0. We want to know what you think. It was a lazy Sunday morning. The bar was closed. Malik was outside on the sidewalk, fixing a crooked planter box with a drill in one hand and a pencil behind his ear. Charlotte stood inside the doorway watching him through the window. He didn't know she was looking. That's what made it beautiful. She held up her phone, framed him in the center, sunlight cutting along his jaw, hands covered in sawdust, the faintest smile tugging at his lips. She snapped the photo, no filters, no edits, just him. Just real. Later, while sipping coffee on the back steps, she posted the image to her Instagram account, the one her mother still monitored, the one her old friends stalked in whispers. She typed a single caption beneath the photo. He gave me the kind of love no one ever taught me to want. And now I don't want anything else. Within minutes, the notifications exploded. Comments, DMs, media mentions. Harper messaged, "Are you serious?" Her mother called twice, ignored. But Charlotte didn't hide. She sat beside Malik as he sanded the bench outside and read each reaction out loud with a smirk. Apparently, "I've fallen from grace," she said. Malik looked up. "That what they're calling it?" "Some of them." She handed him her phone. "Others said I look happy." He studied the post, then her. "Do you?" She nodded. "For the first time, I'm not posing." Malik exhaled. "So now what?" She shrugged. "Now they know. Now it's not a secret. And I'm still sitting right here." He smiled softly. "Good." She reached for his hand, dust still clinging to his fingers. "You okay with being seen?" He squeezed gently. "I've been seen before, but never like this." And just like that, the distance between their two worlds didn't vanish. It was simply walked through together, hand in hand. No apology, no performance. Just truth, finally out in the open. The Vegas Strip hadn't changed much. Still loud, still flashing, still pretending to matter more than it did. But Charlotte walked it differently this time. No heels, no makeup, hiding fear. Just a soft dress, her hair pulled back, and Malik beside her, his fingers brushing against hers like a steady drumbeat. They didn't speak as they approached the old chapel with the plastic Elvis sign still flickering above the door. Inside, the place smelled of old flowers and floor cleaner. The same velvet curtain hung behind the altar, the same fake stained. Glass caught the evening sun, but Charlotte didn't feel like the same woman who had once laughed her way down this aisle. She stopped in the middle of the room and turned to Malik. "You remember anything about that night?" He smirked. "Yeah, you called me mystery man and almost tripped on your own vows." She laughed. "And you asked if I was serious. I never answered." She stepped closer. "I am now." They stood there in silence for a moment. No music, no audience, just the hum of dusty lights and the ache of full-circle clarity. Charlotte touched the edge of the altar. "I used to think this place was a mistake, a joke." Malik looked at her. "Still might be." She raised an eyebrow. He added, "But some jokes are smarter than we are." She smiled. "So what do we do now?" "We don't run from it," he said. "We honor it." She reached into her bag and pulled out 2 simple silver bands. No diamonds, no show, just weight and meaning. "These okay?" He took one, slid it on. "Perfect." She followed. They didn't need an officiant. Not this time. They'd already made the vow, stay, try, be better, be real. And standing in the same place where it all began, they gave the moment something it never had the first time. Truth. No crowd. No dare. Just 2 people who once made a mistake and decided to love it anyway. The sky above Vegas was soft and orange, the kind of sunset that made the city's lights look shy in comparison. On the rooftop of Malik's building, Charlotte stood barefoot on the concrete, a breeze pulling at her dress. Below them, life moved in quick, noisy pulses. Horns, laughter, distant sirens. But up here it was quiet, sacred. Malik stepped out from behind the rooftop door, holding nothing flashy. Just a small black box, and a look that said everything. He hadn't yet spoken aloud. Charlotte turned toward him, heart stammering in her chest. "You okay?" He nodded. "Better than okay." She watched him kneel, not out of show, not for pictures, but because some promises deserve gravity. His hand trembled slightly as he opened the box. Inside was a simple gold ring, no stone, just smooth and whole. "I married you once on a joke," he said, "and I didn't think it would mean anything. But the way you came back, the way you stayed, that meant everything." Her eyes burned as he continued, voice steady. "I don't want to be your story anymore. I want to be your home." Charlotte knelt too, knees touching his, tears slipping down her cheeks. "You already are." He held out the ring. "Then say it again, for real this time." She took the band, slid it on, and whispered, "Yes." The rooftop lights flickered on behind them, casting a soft glow over the city. She leaned into him, forehead to forehead, breath caught in his warmth. They didn't kiss right away. They just held each other, steady, grounded, complete. In a city built on illusion, they had found something painfully, beautifully real. And this time, it wasn't a dare. It was love, fully chosen, fully theirs.